And a very happy Wednesday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. And since it's Wednesday, we're halfway to a weekend at Morongo. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, just about 3 minutes ago, I look on my YouTube and I see a live press conference happening with California Attorney General Rob Bonta in San Diego to talk about a roundtable discussion with leaders about the fentanyl crisis. So I decided I'm just going to hit record, see if anything happens. And what do you think the first thing I heard was?
A bucket of cliches.
I saw leaders from multiple parts of government, federal, state, local, teaming up, coming together, recognizing first that we are in a full-on state of emergency, full state of crisis when it comes to the fentanyl epidemic, and that they are rising to the challenge, meeting the moment, teaming up and finding pathways forward to save lives.
Where was this man educated?
Every press conference, and he gives them daily for some reason. It's always a bucket full of nothing.
Every type of leadership is about meeting the moment and rising to the occasion, and this is what's required. And so we're stepping up and getting it done.
You know, at some point in his life, maybe even frequently, he goes in public and does that, and someone pulls him aside and says, you know, your words were very profound.
That's the kind of talk that's going to get you to the governor's mansion.
Let's hope not. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, another day, another vote, and we still do not have a Speaker of the House.
I think this time there were 22 people that said no to Jim Jordan. So Jim Jordan following in the footsteps of Kevin McCarthy as people who want to be Speaker but can't do math.
I'll tell you what this reminds me of. This reminds me of going to the video rental store when I was a child with my brother. And there was exactly two of us who were there. And we would fight like cats and dogs over who got to pick which video that we would rent. And, of course, when each person gets one vote, you can't get to a majority. You just have a nasty fight in public. So finally, my mom would say, all right, each of you gets to pick a video. Fine. We each got to pick a video. Then we would get home, and then we would have a fight over who got to watch their video first. And since each of us had one vote, we couldn't get to a majority. That's what it seems like right now in Washington. They're fighting over who gets to pick the video and then who gets to pick the video first.
And because they're not counting the votes before they go to the floor with it, it's on display for the entire country to see.
It's almost as if Matt Gaetz didn't think this thing through.
There might be a few things he didn't think all the way through.
Yeah, no kidding. So that's what's going on in Washington, D.C. Back home, there's a significant development that just took place up in San Francisco. We all know that Proposition 47 and AB 109 are killing public safety up and down the state of California, but most electeds, and by electeds I mean Democrats because that's who runs the state, do not believe that. It is extremely rare where you find a liberal Democrat in the state of California who's willing to admit that Prop 47 has been a complete and total disaster.
The best you'll get is they'll say, oh, we need to look at that, but that's not responsible for things like the retail theft. That's not Prop 47. That's what they'll say.
That's right. They'll complain about crime, but they're very quick to defend all of their idiotic policies that are enabling crime. Well, we have one Democrat in San Francisco, the district attorney, Brooke Jenkins, who has officially turned on Prop 47.
There was a public safety meeting with Brooke Jenkins, the DA, and Bill Scott, the San Francisco police chief, and she was asked about getting rid of Prop 47, and she loved the idea.
Can San Francisco residents repeal Proposition 47? Oh, yeah, that's a perfect question. Okay.
It will take more than us to do that. Proposition 47 was a statewide ballot initiative that was passed by the residents of the state of California. And so in order to repeal it in full or any portion of it, we have to get it back on the ballot for the entire state.
Which we tried in 2020, and it failed miserably.
Unfortunately.
What I can tell you is that there have been a number of efforts in the last year to do so through the state legislature, where they would essentially pass a bill that would allow it to hit our ballots. But unfortunately, so far as I've heard, it did not get approved by our state assembly or senate. And so that is going to be an issue. I know that there are other avenues that folks are working on to try to get it directly on the ballot, not so much to repeal the entire crop, but to repeal portions. The main portion being actually that it took away our ability to graduate consequences for repeat offenders of theft.
Wait a second. George Gascon said there's nothing wrong with you can totally add up theft crimes. Oh, you can't?
Apparently, George Gascon lied to us yet again.
We used to have a penal code section that we could use, 666, which if somebody had been...
It is October. That's very fitting.
Do you have to wear a hockey mask when you say that, though?
Which if somebody had been convicted twice of a petty theft, we as the DA's office had the discretion to say, okay, now you're doing this again. We're going to graduate it to a felony this time, based on the conduct.
Why in the world would we take that away from prosecutors?
Because you don't want anyone in prison. That's why. That's the motivation.
How is there any, to use everyone's favorite word, accountability? And when people keep committing the same crime over and over and over again, there is no increased punishment for it.
No, that's accountability.
That prop took away our discretion. Now no matter how many times you commit petty theft, it's a misdemeanor. And so imagine when we also have that all misdemeanors with very few exceptions are diversion eligible automatically, that we have lost really any teeth in prosecuting misdemeanor crimes.
That's right. No one will go to jail, even if you prosecute these things to the full extent of the law. They'll go into a diversion program, which means nothing.
And this is why mom and pops are going under. This is why you're becoming uninsurable. And this is why even the big chains are pulling out.
And so that is one of the main sections of Prop 47 that folks are thinking of working to repeal through a statewide ballot. Okay.
And she went on to explain some of the other problems with Prop 47.
I would say that is the most problematic. And it really is. It is also the problem of, again, having every single misdemeanor crime, like I said, with really maybe 3 or 4 exceptions, automatically by statute be eligible for diversion. It puts us in a bind when we're trying to say, hey, this person is a repeat offender or has more egregious conduct.
The deck is completely stacked against her, even when she wants to do the right thing, which she does, the first prosecutor in San Francisco in 10 years that does. But this is why, crap like this, she's only been able to successfully convict one drug dealer.
That's right. If you can't rig the election, you rig the system.
Conduct, and therefore we don't believe they're suitable. But particularly for stores that sell items that are of lesser value, like a Safeway. Imagine how many carts of groceries you have to steal in order to hit a felony level of $950 from a store like Safeway. It would probably be 3 carts. Nobody's walking out with 3 carts. So every crime
that would be a supermarket sweep.
Maybe at Costco you can do that.
Committed there is a misdemeanor, and they're just not seeing an ability to effectively deal with that.
So we can't go after repeat offenders. The $950 threshold has been a disaster, and we have covered extensively how Prop 47 has pretty much directly contributed to the explosion of homelessness because we don't put people in jail anymore or force them into treatment when they get caught doing drugs openly in public.
And as Brooke Jenkins said, no one can wave a magic wand and get rid of Proposition 47 in the state of California. It's not possible. Prop 47 was voted on by the people of California, and if we are going to get rid of it, the people of California are going to have to be the ones that step up and go to the ballot box and vote to get rid of that monstrosity. Which leads to the question, let's just say we put it on the ballot to get rid of Proposition 47. Everyone seems to recognize that crime is a problem in California. Many of us are either the victims of crime or know someone in our immediate circle who has been the victim of a crime. All of us homeowners have to have homeowners insurance because that's what the banks require, and we don't want to be left out in the cold, literally, if something happens to our house. If you own a business, you need to have some sort of insurance policy. It is becoming increasingly difficult to insure private homes or businesses, in part because of the crime and the homeless situation that the government refuses to do anything about. If we've been given the opportunity to get rid of Prop 47, unfortunately, I believe the people who recognize that crime is a problem and are being punished on a daily basis in a variety of ways due to a spike in crime would vote to keep Prop 47 on the books.
Well, and the last time there was any effort to even somewhat handicap Prop 47 and change a bunch of the things that it turned from felonies to misdemeanors back to felonies was Prop 20 back in 2020. And that lost 61-38.
That's right. California is a heavily Democratic state, which means Democrats are going to have to vote to get rid of Prop 47 for that to be successful. I think we have hope at dumping some of these prosecutors, getting rid of the George Gascons and the Chesa Boudins and the Pamela Prices, because the likely scenario is that they would be replaced by other Democrats who just aren't as crazy as them. But getting the voters of California to dump Prop 47, that's a bit of a tough putt. And it's a tough putt because internally, the debate that's going on in the heads of the voters of California is you have your own political ideology in direct conflict with the reality that you live in. You don't want to be robbed. You don't want to be hit on the head. You don't want to lose your insurance policy or your business because of crime. But you also fundamentally buy into woke ideology. And if you buy into woke ideology, then you don't want to put anyone in prison for any reason unless they went into the Capitol on January the 6th. The people who steal from the stores, they're the poor and downtrodden, and they've been the victim of a system that's rigged against them. The people that live in the encampments that start the fires, well, they're there because we don't have enough beds for the mentally ill thanks to Ronald Reagan. People who steal from the grocery stores, this is like Les Mis. They are stealing to eat. And if that's the way you see the world, then I don't see how you convince that person to ever be willing to put anyone in jail. I don't see how you move them. I don't see what argument you can make that can talk them out of their own ideology, because they not only buy into it, that impacts everything that they do. Look at these people who have been the victims of crime. Look at the woman in Venice with the baby carriage that got run over by someone who just stole a car and should have been in prison for prior offenses. She obviously wasn't happy that she and her baby were run over. She recognized that the person who ran them over was a career criminal and should not be out on the streets able to rob cars and run people over. But instead of saying we need to change the individuals who implement the state laws and we need to change the state laws so that we can put the bad guys in prison, she acknowledged that she voted for George Gascon and said that she's moving to Colorado for reasons.
Lost that vote.
That's right. But had she stuck around, she probably would have voted against repealing Prop 47, and I bet you she voted for Prop 47 the first time. But instead of acknowledging that she was wrong and changing the way that she votes, she voted with her feet and moved to Colorado and will vote to ruin Colorado. And then she's going to be really surprised when she and her next kid get run over in Denver. But that is unfortunately how it works. She doesn't look at what happened to her as a breakdown in policy in California. She looks at it as something that situationally slipped through the cracks. And if it's a situational error and not a fundamental error, then you don't need to change the way you vote. Because after all, you can't win them all. It's the cost of doing business. The guy in Long Beach, we just played the rap on that incident. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday?
The guy that got jumped by a bunch of teenagers after a teenage girl lured him, I am assuming, to film the beating on TikTok. Who knows? At the end of the piece, he says he wants to make sure there are no legal consequences for the teenagers that nearly killed him.
This guy is going to be funky for a long time because of the injuries he sustained from that beating. And he still doesn't want to put them in jail. He doesn't want to do it. Well, maybe they didn't hit him enough times. Maybe he needed another screw loose so that way he could actually understand that our idiotic laws are what put him in danger in the first place and continue to put other people in danger. Because that pack of wild teens, they're still roaming around Long Beach looking for more people to beat up so they can put those videos on TikTok. Remember back in the old Looney Tunes days where someone would have their eyes crossed after they'd get kicked by a mule, and then they'd get kicked by a mule a second time and their eyes would go uncrossed? Is that what has to happen?
I sure hope not.
But these are not only people who are not changing their politics, they have no problem going on television and saying they're not changing their politics. They know, I'm sure, how bad that looks, but they're willing to say it anyway because that's what they think. Karen Bass loves to complain about crime. Fine. I'm happy that she understands that crime is a problem. She's not for repealing Prop 47.
No, the furthest she will ever say is we need to take a look at that.
Oh, you're so optimistic.
But she does not want to do anything about Prop 47. And as soon as you mention the G word, Gascon, she runs for the hills.
Gavin Newsom recognizes that crime is a problem. He's not out in favor of repealing Prop 47. The Attorney General of California wants to be governor. And if crime is a basket case in the state, that's unlikely to happen. Yet given all of that, he's unlikely, or he hasn't come out in favor of repealing 47.
And he has extra power in this situation because if you got to repeal 47 on the ballot, he's the Attorney General. He gets to write what it's called.
That's right. So you have all of these people who have a vested interest in getting rid of this law so that, A, they can live in peace and harmony. Let's not forget, Karen Bass was also the victim of a crime when someone broke into her house and stole her guns.
No!
But they're not moving up to higher office if they're regarded as a failure. Yet they still won't come out in favor of repealing Prop 47. Brooke Jenkins is one of the few. She is one of the few voices in the Democratic Party who is willing to publicly state that Prop 47 is a disaster and is single-handedly destroying public safety. And if, as a DA, she wants to do her job, it handcuffs her to the point where she can't do it. I hope that after making that point, she doesn't go away. I hope she continues to make that point and she gets louder and louder and louder. And if she does that, the knives will be out. They are going to go after her the same way they went after Jackie Lacey in Los Angeles. Because when you're woke, telling the public that the black chick who got elected DA or I guess in her case, appointed DA, is bad at her job is something that's acceptable to say when it's not even true. They're going to come after her, especially in a city and a county like San Francisco. But good on her for telling the truth. Good on her for making the argument. I hope she doesn't back down. Now, I'm curious to get your reaction to this because maybe you feel differently. Maybe you feel like your neighbors have had enough with crime to the point to where they're willing to vote against their own ideology to dump 47. So here's the question for you at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If California voters were given the chance tomorrow to dump Prop 47, would they do it? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to take a podcast edition of the monologue that we just delivered and send it to your friends and family who live and vote in California and say, look, you don't have to just vote with those evil right-wingers to get rid of Prop 47. You can vote with the Democratic District Attorney of San Francisco and make California safer. That podcast is easy to access.
Well, as soon as I post it, because it's happening right now. But yes, at 1 o'clock, I'll have it posted. Go to the KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store, the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live from noon to 3. Well, anytime, but especially from noon to 3, wherever you are, if you're outside of the AM radio listening audience. And you can download all the podcasts of this show, which we detail greatly the
rising crime in California.
It's Woo Wednesday.
Ric Flair.
It's Woo Wednesday, yeah, baby. Woo, 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 woo.
Which means, Randy, tomorrow is Throwback Thursday.
That's right, and we're going to change it up, do something a little different for this Throwback Thursday, because every single week we get emails of people that they come up with ideas, but because they're not calling in at 2:30, either they can't get on or they're not around at 2:30, they don't get their voice. So we're going to do an email-based Throwback Thursday. So between now and 2:30, if you send us an email at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, that's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com with the subject line Throwback Thursday, you can tell us your pitch for a theme, your favorite artist, genre, something weird, something strange. And at 2:30, we're going to pick one of those emails, and it's going to be all the music we play for Throwback Thursday. So if you want to play for this Throwback Thursday, you got a great theme idea, just email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com.
The Democratic District Attorney in San Francisco, Brooke Jenkins, says that Proposition 47 is handcuffing prosecutors and destroying public safety in the state of California, and she wants it gone. If the voters of California were given the opportunity to repeal Prop 47 today, do you believe they would do that? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Right now, we're taking your calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. The incumbent Democratic District Attorney in San Francisco says Prop 47 needs to go. Prop 47 doesn't allow her to do her job to keep public safety in San Francisco. Do you believe if the voters of California were given the opportunity to dump Prop 47 today, they would choose to do so? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's begin with Ken in Studio City. Ken, you're on KABC. Hello.
Hi, John. Hi, Randy. Caught me with my pants down. I didn't. That was quick.
Wait a minute. Is this Ken or is this Jeffrey Toobin?
Well,
you've got time to pull your pants up, Ken. We'll wait.
Okay. They're up. And quite frankly, I'm going to answer you mindfully.
Quite frankly.
The voters will not repeal Proposition 47. And here's the simple reason. I hate all this talk about red pilling. It doesn't happen because I am a conservative. I am absolutely sure in what I believe. So are liberals. Most of my friends, neighbors, and family are liberals. They are absolutely certain in their beliefs. The problem is conservatives react rationally to the real world. Liberals react emotionally to a fantasy world. That's it. Thank you very much. My pants are now up.
Well, it's very hard to ever admit that you're wrong. But if you have to live here, we're not talking about some argument online in the comment section of an LA Times piece. I'm talking about the laws that are on the books in the state that you live in. I have made a bunch of mistakes with how I've voted in the past. I'll give you a couple of examples. First and foremost is term limits. I thought term limits were a good idea. Let's keep it churning. Let's bring people in from outside the government. Let's give them an opportunity to make a contribution and then go back to the private sector. And what has happened with term limits is they just jump from one office to another, and they're totally focused on raising as much money as possible and not doing anything to alienate their base, because if the base is alienated, they'll come after them in a primary when they run for something else. So what the result was you had people who are hyper-focused on fundraising, and they never vote against their own party, which in the case of the Democratic Party, which is in the minority, means none of them ever break ranks and go with the other side on any subject. And that has turned out to be a complete and total disaster. And I'll tell you another one that comes to mind that I screwed up. I voted to legalize marijuana in the state of California because of two different reasons. One is personal political ideology. I believe that you are on the planet a short period of time. If that's your vice and you're not hurting anyone and you're paying your own taxes, go ahead, have fun, knock yourself out. I don't want to stand in the way between you and your vice, and I don't want you standing in the way between me and my vices. And the other issue was I thought if it was legal, then it would put the cartels out of business.
That did not happen.
No, it didn't happen. And now they're just human trafficking, and they're selling fentanyl instead.
And they're still selling pot, too. They're growing it in Lancaster.
That's right. So John screwed both of those things up. Is it easy to admit? No. But again, I live in the state. I don't want the cartels to have more power. I want them to have less power. I don't want my state legislature never breaking ranks, even when they know that it would benefit the people of California. And term limits have screwed that all up. So if I had the opportunity to go back and have a mulligan on those two votes, I would absolutely do it. And I believe that there are people out there who think like me, who make mistakes now and then, who are willing to correct them. Maybe not a majority, but who knows? Let's have the vote and find out how many people are like me. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. And Randy, the emails are coming in at a tremendous clip over at JohnnyDon'tLikeShow@gmail.com for suggestions for Throwback Thursday.
And here's an unintended consequence of opening up the Throwback Thursday contest to the emailers. What I did not expect was how many people would email us with very, very, very inappropriate themes that we would get in trouble for.
Especially in celebration of Kamala Harris's upcoming birthday.
But please send us your suggestions at JohnnyDon'tLikeShow@gmail.com. At 2:30, we'll pick one of them to be the theme for Throwback Thursday.
Yes. And again, if you're ultra vulgar, it will entertain us during the breaks, but we cannot pick it. So keep that in mind. Let's go to Steve in Pasadena. Steve, you're on KABC. Hello.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Hey, I don't think that it matters whether or not Prop 47 is approved or disapproved by voters. I'm going to tell you why. All right. First of all, in California, many crimes are deemed to be wobblers. That means that they could be charged either as a felony or a misdemeanor. All right. Secondly, when law enforcement charges somebody, law enforcement doesn't charge anybody with a crime. They try to get the case filed with the DA's office, or if they can kick it up to the U.S. Attorney's office, they try to get it filed there. It's up to the DA as to whether or not they want to file a charge and what crime they're going to charge. Okay, the cops, the detectives or the street cops will write up a report, and many cops don't get creative with the way that they write because, for instance, this isn't a crime within 47, but this just to prove a point. You know, there could be a street fight, right? And it could be the bad guy could be charged with a battery, okay, or which is a wobbler, which could be charged as a misdemeanor or a felony. Most of the time it's charged as a misdemeanor, but under the right circumstances, that same battery could be charged as an attempted murder, which is a felony. Okay? So, you know, a lot of what goes down is twofold. The cops or the federal agents have to really know what crimes or what alternative crimes they can charge, okay, so that they can get them filed as felonies. And they have to be able to deal with a DA that's willing to file the charges, okay, rather than dealing with Hector the rejecter that won't take it. Let's not forget, Gascon's got to go to the public and say, hey, I've got a 90% conviction record, right? Well, if he's only taken 30% of the cases that come his way, then he's getting 90% of the 30%. So the numbers that he's providing to the public to make him look like he's doing his job are really false. But anyway, I just don't think it matters whether or not 47 passes or not. It just doesn't. It's all about whether the cops know how to write up a report and charge the right thing, and whether or not the DA will accept the case and decide to charge a wobbler as a felony as opposed to a misdemeanor. That's how the system works.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it.
We could have gone home. He could have done the rest of the show.
Well, the man raises an interesting point. Maybe what we need to do is stop hiring social workers and safety ambassadors and start hiring more creative writing instructors for the police academy. Just pluck them out of junior colleges all over the state and put them right down there in the police academy with Captain Lassard, Steve Gutenberg, the guy that does all the voices, Tackleberry, and teach him how to write creatively. Interesting idea. Tomorrow is Throwback Thursday, and Randy, we're doing something a little bit different this week.
That's right. Instead of taking calls, since so many people email and never get their voice heard, we're doing it all through email today. So if you got a suggestion for the music playlist and you can never get through at 2:30, tell us about your theme. Tell us about your idea. Be creative, but also, and I have to emphasize this now, realize that whatever you're writing to us, I'm going to have to read on the air. So if it's too offensive for that, it's probably not going to get picked.
All right. We've got 2 more hours coming up on the John Phillips Show. The Fix California Hour is next. Don't you go anywhere. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC.
Rising crime in California.